heaven or hell doesn't just start after you die. Heaven or hell starts today, okay? Get that in your mind. And what that means is that the more that you're at the cause of your results, the more that you are elevated, would be a simple way of putting it, okay? So what does an example of heaven on earth look like? Let's get specific. What does that mean? I would say at a base level, it means that you have control of your state, okay? You have base level state control. In my view, that means access to transcendent states or flow states without needing anything external. That's number one, okay? Another one is having access to your own will without being manipulated, okay? Without the manipulation of even just the physical body, the ego, social conditioning, different addictions within the body, different status addictions that you have within your brain, and so on and so forth. So it means access to your own will. Most of us are operating without access to our own will. I would predict that probably all of you in this room are operating without access to your own will. Just as a heads up, I can break that down for you for a long time, and I'll probably convince you of it. Another one is your own discernment. So in other words, your discernment, your ability to detect reality is very much dictated by the paradigms that you're in. And so if you're addicted to, say, a negative state, then your ability to determine reality will be very much dictated by that. So let me give a couple examples, okay? Let's talk about discernment for just a second, okay? If you are, you will be addicted to whatever level of emotion you access the most, okay? It creates basically synaptic superhighways in the brain. Say the word synaptic superhighways. Synaptic superhighways. Okay, fantastic. So what this means is that if you're laughing all the time, you could have something really tragic happen, but very, very quickly, not right away, you're not gonna be like bulletproof, but within short order, you will go back to laughing. You just will. Likewise, if you're somebody who's very upset all the time, it doesn't matter what you're given, you will go back to being upset. How do I know this? How do I know this? I have special insight to this. I'm gonna tell you my special insight, okay? You guys ready? I'm gonna look pretty stupid right now. This is me admitting some pretty dumb things about myself. I am the ultimate Captain Save-A-Ho you have ever seen. I am the supreme, I am not just Captain Save-A-Ho. I am ambassador, legendary, like Captain Save-A-Ho. I have this weird compulsion to save people. I have this weird compulsion to date people who are like half potential but a little bit broken. I have this weird compulsion to find people that are suffering and try to help them. It's this really weird thing that I have that I think partly is a spiritual thing that actually speaks well of me, and I think partially is just codependent because I had a messed up upbringing, okay, if I'm being honest, although I do appreciate my parents giving me life. But I think that's part of what it is. And so I have literally taken many, many people, more than maybe anyone you'll ever meet, and walked them through the process of becoming a self-made millionaire, walked them, like held their hand through the whole thing, walked them through the process of getting incredible dating results to where they're like, you know, one of the most popular people in Hollywood and their dating life is off the chain. I've walked people towards really, really high levels of vitality and so on and so forth. I've done this for years. Look, I'm the idiot who basically, I could have probably been, I mean, could you imagine what my public speaking career would have looked like if I wouldn't have done the subject that I did? But I felt a compulsion to get that content out despite the nightmarish problems that it caused me. Why is that? I'm Captain Save-A-Ho. Okay, call me Captain Save-A-Ho. I've had it to where I help somebody build up multi-million-dollar businesses, and they go and they light it on fire. And you'll watch, and when they light it on fire, and you hear them talk, like if they were here, they'd be like, Owen, here's why I lit it on fire, and they would be very convincing. You'd be like, sounds like Owen's horrible, and this is really, really convincing. It's millions of dollars. How bad could it be? Okay? Do you know how insulting that is to the average person? It's insane. I've had it where I'll help somebody do a $500,000 launch. Maybe we forgot to send an email, and all they can do is scream about the email. That is the power of reticular activation system, RAS, which is selective focus, to where they can't see the 500K that they never even went to college. And I don't think you need to go to college, by the way, at all. But let's be honest, if you never did go to college and you just made $500,000 in a month or two, you think that's cause to celebrate? What does a doctor or a lawyer make in a year? Doesn't matter. Let's cry and flip out over the missed email. I remember one person I helped. Yeah, but I don't view it like you helped me make $500,000. I view it like you cost me $10,000. Couldn't stop complaining about it. Why? Life got too good. Life got too good. Life got too good. This is why you think that when you make a ton of money, that your significant other is going to be appreciative. I haven't seen that at all. Not at all. In fact, my buddy Luke, you know what he said? He said the ultimate, and this is like hilarious, he said the ultimate thing to have for dating is the almost mansion. And by the almost mansion, what he meant was like a mansion that your friend lent you. Okay? Like you're at the door, like you've gone back with some people, and like you're at the door of the mansion, you're not even sure if you have the code, but then eventually you get the code, and you're not even sure where your room is, and then you eventually get in, and that is actually more resonant to the average person as being attractive than if you owned it. Because now, you have access to like the cool crib and it's like kind of fun, like all the upsides of the mansion, but without actually taking away the pain body needs of the individual. They know that you're kind of cracked out and that you're going to give them plenty of pain body is basically what they're feeling, right? Versus if life is perfect, that's actually not attractive. And this is what you'll see. This is why you're thinking, oh, you have to make a lot of money to attract somebody. It's completely delusional. Absolutely not true. The average person is so addicted on their pain that they will never stop fighting for that. They are so utterly addicted on their pain. They are not ready to actually succeed whatsoever. And I have seen this. I am like a Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein. Like, find me someone who's broken. Find me someone who's a mess. Find me someone who's a wreck. And I just can't help but to take them to the promised land. I just can't stop myself. It's literally like a cracked out addiction. And I can't stop. It's weird. It's a weird compulsion. I can't stop. It's the weirdest thing that I have. Now, what I have seen over time is that it doesn't stick. Okay, let me give you some freaky examples. Okay, I'm gonna give you some very, very weird examples. This is me just being so utterly transparent, I can't even tell you how transparent I'm being. This is just as transparent as it gets. I remember there was this one guy who I met in like 2007, and this guy was possessed by negativity. And he would run online and spew so much horrific, horrific negativity. And I said to him, hey man, why don't you come and meet up with me? I wanna show you the other side of life. So I met up with him. And I really liked it. I genuinely like this guy. But this is just the first time I had this experience. I genuinely like him though, and I truly root for him. And I remember I said to him, why don't we go hiking in the Nepali coast? And we went hiking in Nepal. I really, really like this guy. Like, I wish he was here. I like him a lot. And so I took him hiking in the Nepali coast. He was really struggling with a lot of negativity. I took him hiking in the Nepali coast. And we had a great time. And I talked to him about a lot of these ideas. I talked to him about his pain, about where he's coming from, about how his discernment is off, about how his mind is messing with him, about how much better life could be. And he came back and we stayed friends. And, you know, he was really on the up and up. But I remember then all of a sudden he starts sending me this different literature about like being kind of Machiavellian and things like that. I'm not opposed to like Machiavellian stuff necessarily. Like, you know, it's like definitely something to like look at and kind of think about and like maybe a perspective to have. But I'm not a big fan of that content in general because I find it's very win-lose and it's really just coming from a pain body state. And I like content that is win-win. I win, you win, everybody wins. I remember he's looking at that. He's like, you know, because we'd been sharing a lot of books about things that are more win-win based, more spiritual, more uplifting, and all of a sudden he kind of had that book. And then I remember, and it wasn't like, it was still a good book. He actually showed me a good book. But I just remember thinking like, oh, he's getting back on the crack, getting back on the poop eating. He loves it, right? And I remember I would try to hit him back because I like him a lot and I loved his transformation. And then I remember I didn't hit him back quite quick enough, and I could tell he was upset. And then I saw him at a bar club, and he was wasted drunk, and he came, and he vomited the most horrible, like, I wish you die, I wish death upon you, and all this kind of stuff. And why? It's a parasite on the brain that is running him. I've done experiments on this. I could pull out DMs right now where, like, some guy will light me up, he's like, I hate you, da-da-da. And I'll actually talk to him. I'll be like, hey, what's up, bro? Can I help you? Is there something that you misinterpreted? What could I have done different? Just let me know. And you'll actually see them come around a little bit. They're like, hey, man, I'm so sorry. I love your videos. I'm like, cool, bro, thank you. Well, you know, if you need a little bit of advice, I can tell you're hurting. Tell me what you need. And I'll give them a bit of advice, and they'll be like, thank you. You changed my life. That's amazing. If I don't answer that DM for even 5 or 6 hours, they will send death threats upon me and my children. I've had that. Like, I hope your kids die. I hope you die. You're the demon. And you're like, where is this coming from? Like, I could read this out. What it is pure, in my view, it is pure addiction to pain. I personally believe it's spiritual possession. I believe that it is somebody who's very much at the effect of life. Somebody who's in a very, very dark place. And what it is, and in spiritual growth, this is what they'd say. They would say that when you get possessed by a pain body attack, what it is there's some weird energy. Again, I'm not going to substantiate this here. We'll just roll with it. I'm not even sure of this. I just think it's an interesting way of seeing it. Basically what happens is that person who's covered in negativity, there's like an energetic parasite that's there. And it looks for people that it can possess to sort of bring itself from hell. And so it hijacks your brain. Once it hijacks your brain, it will get you to do stupid things that will cause you pain, and it will mess with your discernment, it will mess with your willpower, it cuts you off from flow, and it gets you to the point that you're possessed by it. And then what happens is now your life will be set up in this weird web where the pain keeps coming, so it can keep inhabiting you. Now, I would hope that most of you in this room, given what a surface level explanation I gave, I hope most of you think this is BS what I'm saying, because I have not remotely given a fair explanation for this. Again, I want today's seminar to be about something different. I've got a lot of video coming out about this where I show examples of it, I show real life examples of it, I break it down bit by bit, I show how the cycle works, I go super deep on that. I just have a lot of broad subject matter and I don't want to have to like repeat every little thing from scratch. So just leave that as like a possible thing in your mind and check out some other videos and make up your own mind about it. But I would say this, whether you agree with what I said or not, even if you don't agree with it, would you say that you can kind of still relate to that kind of general vibe and tone of what you've seen?
Yeah.
Okay, so you see what I'm saying there, right? Some of you guys do? Okay, so this is something that's very, very heavy that people are dealing with. And it's something that I personally encountered both from my Captain Sabaho days, but also from releasing very transformational content. And I believe that if you release very, very transformational content, that you know you're over the target in a positive way when people that are very, very dark hate what it is that you're doing. That is how you know. You will see it, okay? No different than if you're like kind of out partying and you're having the best time with your friends and maybe somebody who's homeless walks by and they like throw a cup at you and tell you to die. You ever seen that where you're like in the best mood ever and a homeless person comes by and they're like, yeah! And they like throw like a cup of, like a coffee cup at you or something like that? You ever seen that? Okay, well that's the exact same vibe. There's something in people that are carrying darkness that wants to attack things that are at the cause, okay? Because part of that darkness is feeling at the effect. So much of this idea of getting success is more so about realizing that you're at the cause of your life, and getting to the cause of your life to get rid of these sick parasites off your brain, to get yourself more to the cause, get it to where you are tapped into your own willpower, you are tapped into your own discernment, so that your discernment is not being warped and messed with, and so that you have independent access to states of flow. Now, keep in mind, it is only when you have access to independent states of flow that you are truly yourself. Here's why. As long as you need something external to gain a positive feeling, you are a puppet. Now, what is the counter? There's a very good counter arguments against this. What would be a very good counter argument against what I just said? It's a really obvious one. What would it be?
No incentive.
Zero incentive. How could you ever be incentivized to take action if you already feel good? This is where, in spiritual growth, they would talk about the difference between apathy and enlightenment. Okay? So, in other words, who here's ever been in a club and you're talking to everybody and you're killing it and you're crushing it, and then you feel so incredibly good that you can't stop saying hi to people and spreading positive vibes? You ever had that feeling?
Yeah.
Okay, it's the best feeling in the world. You can't stop. Like you're like a dog wanting to be let off the leash. You know, like a dog gets let off the leash, it just goes runs around the neighborhood. That is what happens when you get into a state that you are actually in control of your own emotions. When you're just able to control a totally positive state, in the Bible they would say the cup runneth over. The cup runneth over. You want, okay, here's the thing with me, because I've studied this for a lot of years. Some things that I've experienced. Remember we talked about heaven or hell on earth? I cannot help it when I see someone I'm attracted to go say hi. I can't help it, guys. I cannot help it. When I see somebody I like, I've got to go say hi. I got to go say hi. When I see some place online that I want to go visit, I got to go visit. I have to go visit. When I see some giant sick house I want to live in, I got to go get it. When I see somebody cool that I like, maybe even a celebrity that I'd like to be friends with, I got to find out a way to meet them. When I see somebody I'm into, I gotta find a way to get to know them better. When I think about an intellectual pursuit or a great challenge or mountain to climb, I gotta go do it. I can't help it. I gotta go do it. It is like oxygen to me. It is oxygen. The reason why that happened, okay, it is not hard for me to motivate myself. It is completely natural for me to feel motivated. It is natural for me to be out here. It's natural for me to want to post videos. It's natural for me to want to like suck in the juice of life. I just want to. When I see people that are not motivated, to me, it looks so incredibly weird. I don't get it. It's bizarre beyond bizarre beyond bizarre. And then you see people like I talked about where I said, oh, they think that like the pleasure will be worth it. Like, well, if I just meet that person or just get that money, the pleasure will be worth it. Here's the problem. As long as you're seeing it as a cost-benefit analysis of, I feel bad now, but when I get the money or I get the significant other or I get the date or I get whatever, the trip, the house, whatever, as long as you see it as a net positive of I get this much good emotions, you'll never be able to get it. Here's why, okay? Here's the big takeaway, the big takeaway. In order to go get a lot of money, as an example, if you're purely looking at it for the result itself, the money isn't pleasurable enough to go through the whole process of it. It's actually not. I promise you it's not. There is so much, okay, to get to, who doesn't want tons and tons of money? Who? Everybody does. Who doesn't want to get a significant other that's highly attractive for a night or a lifetime? Everybody does. These people have options. These people can meet anybody, and that money can go anywhere. So there is so many options. So in order for you to stand out on a level that somebody spends their hard-earned money with you, in order for you to be attractive enough that somebody spends their maybe not hard-earned, but born with, you know what on you, right? Their biggest piece of leverage they have, which is, can't hook up with everybody, right? So knowing that you're the person they chose, they could have chose anybody, and they chose you. The process of getting to that point, if it's purely just for the result, it's not worth it. Because think about it. How much better is a prime steak than a flank steak? How much better is it to mess around with someone kind of attractive versus super attractive? How much better is a mansion over a decent house? They're better for sure. Of course they're better, but they're more ego trips than they are actually better. Some of the best intimacy I've had is with people that are not that attractive, but the intimacy was psycho, Some people I've been seeing for over a decade. I'm not even super into wouldn't really want to bring them up here, but I'm into it. Other people I bring up here very proudly and wasn't into it. So you see the point there. It's one of these things where the actual payoff, the juice isn't worth the squeeze if it's just for the result itself. Unless you're somebody who gets a total ego trip off of having that result. If you get a total ego trip from it. But you know what you're going to realize at the time? We're all going to die. No one's going to care. Do y'all know who Rockefeller is? Do y'all know who Carnegie is at a high level? You know who they are. But does it really matter that you care about them now that they're dead? Is anyone really going to care what you did when you're dead? This ego thing is a total trip, totally ridiculous. The ego is a good indicator light for when you're messing up. It can help you to an extent. It's kind of like a default operating system that'll show you where you're messing up that you're born with. There's a function of it. It's not all bad. But if that's where you're coming from largely, you'll work and work and work your whole life to be better than the Joneses, and you'll just die. So what does it actually matter? What you want to be looking at instead is what is enjoyable to you. What would you want other than just an ego trip? So coming from this standpoint, knowing this, then what I've got to say to you is you've got to start designing what is not your most ego-driven life, but what is your most desirable life that would actually make you happy? What is it that actually makes you happy? What kind of person would you want to be with that you'd be the happiest with? What kind of money do you want to make that you'd be the happiest with? Now you're like, unlimited money. Wait. Most people are not going to make $1 billion without a trade-off. There is a trade-off. What are some trade-offs that I made? Many of my clients that I coach one-on-one are people that are very wealthy. We're out here in San Francisco. Do you understand how many wealthy clients that I have out here that I do one-on-one with? People that you know as famous entrepreneur celebrities that I was actually coaching one-on-one or in group programs even up to 20 years ago, including the biggest ones, or if I told you, your jaw would drop. Okay? Because they got to go somewhere for help with their dating lives, right? And that we were kind of the deal, me and Mystery. So we had all those clients. They were all coming to us, or tons of them were coming to us. And that being the case, why didn't I want to just go build a tech company? Why didn't I want to just go focus on something money-oriented? Why did I do weird, controversial self-help topics?
Legacy.
I did it for legacy, but what else?
Because it's you.
I want to do it. Yeah. It's something that I wanted to do. Now, if you look at my life, how many people would have a life that would be worth not trading with mine? I spent my whole winter skiing, every major ski resort. I go out with whoever I want. I live in my favorite crib that I could live in. I'm out in nature all the time. I was in nature 270 days in the past year for about 2.5 years. And who here watches my Instagram stories? You guys see this? I'm always out in nature. I'm recording video content that I love, or I'm doing seminars, or I'm going out to parties, or I'm going out to clubs, or I'm going to fly restaurants. I'm hanging out with the people I want to hang out with. You see what I'm saying here, right? So I had to do a cost-benefit analysis because a lot of the people that I coach one-on-one try to buy me out. They say, Owen, why don't you come work with me? Why are you doing this crazy business? You're insane. This is too controversial. It's too crazy. You got to get out. Why are you doing this? And I say, because I don't want to just trade my life. I like my life. So I design my life with intention. Say the word design my life with intention. Say that.
Design my life with intention.
Okay? So money is one metric. Money is one metric. Money is one metric, one of many metrics. And there is a trade-off. Okay? There's a trade-off to everything. So, of course, if you could just design, I want $1 billion, well then, yeah, great. I'll take the billion too. How many billions? Trillions and billions and gazillions and trillions. I'll just fly through space on ships and stuff. But, would I trade lives with Bill Gates? Would I trade lives with Jeff Bezos? No. Maybe now that they've got everything and then I could just start doing it, but I wouldn't want to burn those decades. Your time is the most valuable thing that you have, along with the momentum and focus that you have within that time, and the way that you can use it to your liking. So we only have a limited amount of time. So what you've got to start doing is you've got to say to yourself, what is it that I actually want? That is the first step in all of this. But again, I got to explain something to you. If I'm trying to teach you the level of motivation that makes you stronger than people who have intergenerational wealth. I'm trying to show you the level of motivation that makes you stronger than somebody who has venture capital, okay? Now here's what I mean by that. Most people who you meet that are super duper rich either inherited it or have some kind of venture capital. That's my understanding. Could be wrong statistically. I'm not sure, actually. I should probably double check those stats because I think a lot of people just also made like 80K a year and just saved it all but didn't spend anything. It's called the millionaire next door concept. But generally speaking, most really, really wealthy clients that I have either got it from their parents or they got it from what's called venture capital. Do you guys know what venture capital is? Yeah. So in other words, if you run a business that doesn't have investors and you run out of money, what happens? Total carnage. Total, utter carnage. But if you're somebody who runs a business where you have investors, what do you do when you run out of money? Do you need to did Amazon need to have a profit right away? How long did Amazon run without a profit? Okay, so Amazon probably is a hyper-efficient company. I mean, they're even thinking of using drones. Not the best example necessarily, but nonetheless, I have a lot of clients who I love to death, and many of them work very, very hard, but they are certainly not the same gun to your head, day-to-day panic that an entrepreneur without venture capital has. They may be that way sometimes because they've got to get a return for their investors, but largely they have access to other people's cash. And so it's a little bit different. Like for me, if I have a little bit of friction or rough seas, or I have a major headache, I've got to be so on top of it. I've got to be so on the ball to be able to bring it back, okay? Because what happens if I mess up my cash? All of a sudden, can't pay cameras, can't pay the team, can't book the rooms, can't pay rent, can't pay staff. Now I've got to start programming my own websites. I've got to start doing my own sales calls. I've got to, start writing all my own sales copies again, which I used to do. These are all things that I did in my 20s. I did all this stuff in my 20s. Then I mastered it, outsourced it, and got other people to do it. And I had to learn how to train them. Imagine me at this point in my life having to go back to answering the phones, having to go back to me using handy cams to record a seminar. You guys remember my old handy cam videos? I couldn't afford, my old videos were recorded with handy cams. I couldn't afford a camera team. There was no way. Imagine I have to go back to handy cams. Imagine I have to go back to programming websites. Imagine I have to go back to writing my own sales copy exclusively and just sitting there doing all that at age 42. Do you know how much that sucks? So I don't have that room for failure the way that normal people do. I have that same gun point in my head. And yet I also have the artistic component of me wanting to say what's on my mind, which is not always the best thing to say. Most personal growth teachers, the topics that they cover are very, very short-term wins. They don't really go that deep on it, and that's why I call it retail self-help. They are under the gun. I think that at a higher level, you can teach content that is actually the real content and still do very, very well. Will you do as well as somebody who's just appealing to total derpers? No, you're not, because there's so many derpers. There's so many derpers out there. But what you can do is you can find a community of people that want to go to a very high level, and guess what happens? Now you've got the best people around you, and you feel good about what it is that you're doing. It's the difference between growing a grass-fed steak and a grain-fed, steroid-pumped, hormone-pumped steak, okay? What makes more money? Obviously the hormone, grain-fed, steroid-pumped steak, right? I would ask you guys a question. Who in here would rather make 100 times the money, and don't feel bad about it, do not feel bad, do not feel bad. Everybody's a little bit different. Who here would feel better to make 100x the income, maybe even 1,000x the income, doing the grain-fed steak with the hormones and the steroids? And who here would be happier doing the grass-fed? Put up your hand for grass-fed if you made 1,000th the amount. Who here would take the grain-fed for like $1 billion? You get $1 billion instead of like $1 million. Hard to say no, right? It's hard to say no. But I'm going to tell you something, okay? The truth is that there's some things money can't buy. There are some things that money can't buy. And what you're going to find is you get the money, but you lose your soul. Okay? It's right in the Bible. And that doesn't mean you have to take it literally, but it's at minimum a very, very powerful metaphor. So you will find that the benefits that you get when you do something that you believe in and that you're proud about is going to take you to levels of subjective experience that you don't even have a context for yet. Now, here's what I mean by that. When you have your own will, when you have your own discernment, when you have independent access to flow, you are now not being run by a parasite. You're now not being run by something outside yourself. Happiness is subjective more so than objective. So in other words, what I mean by that is that you think that a certain amount of some kind of success is going to make you happy, but that's not necessarily true. I have many, many wealthy clients that are completely miserable, that fight with their spouse, that do cocaine, some that commit suicide. You guys might know a very, very famous wealthy guy that used to come to our events. He was close to a billionaire, and he wound up doing so many drugs that he died in a fire. And you guys might know about who that is, perhaps. Okay, but this is a big public thing, and he was loaded and a happy, great guy. But he died. He had all that. A lot of great people that did great things that died. Chris Cornell, Robin Williams, who was the singer from Linkin Park? Chester Bennington. Many, many highly successful people that are dead. And that doesn't mean that my explanation is the exact explanation, but it's something to be considered. Why do these people off themselves? So you've got to start asking yourself things like this. You've got to go a little bit deeper. So if you want to focus just purely on something that benefits yourself, that's fine. But do be aware that in my experience, you run out of gas. You largely run out of gas. Now, by the way, I have seen it where people fully give in to the parasite at the highest level, and they actually don't run out of gas. I have seen cases of it. They fully give in the mental parasite. They're like, I just love money. I love it, and so on and so forth. And they fully give into it. That will run them. That will really take away from their human experience. Something like art, something like real friendship, something like nature, something like deep, powerful states of flow, they're cut off from that. Why is friendship or art or deep states of flow or nature, why are these some of the highest level experiences that we can have? Is there a point to real friendship? No. From a base level way of looking at it. Like a real friendship, not just a friendship that you make money off of. A real friendship where you extend your personal boundaries to that other person and care about them like you care about yourself. Maybe not quite as much because you're human. We have fear of death, but close. Yeah. But close. Somebody who's in a win-lose paradigm sees no benefit of that. Somebody, how about art? We don't need art. We don't need it. What money are you going to get out of it? We don't need art. But why do we resonate with art when we're coming from a high paradigm? It is the act of creation itself is why we can appreciate art. It is coming from a place of total abundance is really what it means. That's what art is. It's coming from a place of so much abundance that you would sit there for a year just crafting something beautiful. That much abundance. There's no point to it. You're just making art. There's no actual point. Things like going into nature. Do you need to go into nature? Where's the money? How do you make money going in nature? You don't. You actually lose time. You lose opportunity cost. Why would you go into nature? Again, if you're cut off from your will, your discernment, your flow, you're being run, there is no point. But if you think about it, in life, you're going to die. It doesn't matter how much cash you get if you're going to die and not get to carry it with you. Now, the same could be said about art and all that too. But what I mean is, what you're going to learn is that the breath of life cannot save you. Okay? Living at the breath cannot save you. You will not be saved in breath. In other words, it doesn't matter. Living to be 77 or even 120 or even 200 is too fast. It doesn't matter how long you live, it's too fast. It's way too fast. Look, I'm 42. I'm now, compared to when I started this at 22, I don't want to die of old age any more now than I did before. At all. Not at all. But yet I'm 20 years closer to death. Now, for those of you in here, anybody here around age 22 or younger, put your hands up if you're 22 or younger. Do you think that I want to die of old age any more than you do just because I'm 42? I'm maybe a little bit more at peace with it, but I want to live life fully. I don't want to just die. Do you think you're going to feel any different at 62? You think you're going to feel any different at 120? And let me tell you another thing too. For anybody who here is over 40, put your hands up. Okay, how fast did the past 20 years go? Too fast. Boom, gone. In the same way that for you a week goes by is us for 20 years. Life, it doesn't matter how long you stretch out your life, it goes by too fast. Doesn't matter what. So from that standpoint, you cannot, while you should protect your life, you cannot win in life with just longer and more safety and so on and so forth. All are important. Very important. I'm very into longevity and all that. My friends are deep in that world. But understand that the only actual escape is in the depth itself. It's like that. That's what it's. You can't win like that. You can't do it. This has like the edge of the table. It's like, boom, you fall off the table. You can't do it. What does have infinite is the depth, okay? So in my view, life is about making the deepest possible experiences you can. That is where the infinite is. That is where you can go infinite. You can go mega nuclear, is on the depth of the experience itself. So things like a real friendship, things like real love, things like art, things like nature, things like being attached to, connecting to a deep, deep, powerful flow state. These are the things where you can actually go deep on it. And so this is where, in my view, you can kind of find yourself, okay? You can go breath, 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 breath. It's hard to find yourself there. No matter what you make, okay, no matter what. I made my first $2 million at age 26. I promise you, at 26, I thought that was, how cool is that at age 26? Get $2 million. You know what winds up happening? I was the most unhappy I ever was in my life. I'm not giving you some BS that money makes you unhappy. That's not true. But I didn't know how to handle it at the time. So that's why. It wasn't the money made me unhappy. I didn't know how to handle it. Here's what I did. I took a 6-week trip to Mexico. I've made videos about this. I took a 6-week trip to Mexico. I went to every 5-star dinner. I went to every, there's actually castles in Mexico, believe it or not. They're kind of like quasi-castles. And I went to every castle that I could find. I went to pyramids. I went all through Cabo San Lucas and Cancun and all through the main parts of Mexico. I think the only kind of place I didn't hit was like Monterrey. I would actually wish I would have gone there. But anyway, so I hit like a huge, huge part of Mexico. I drove it, burned through so much cash. And in the end, I was actually more unhappy because I was taken out of a flow state. I started trying to gain pleasure from material pursuits. It cut me off from flow. So understand that life, and as far as your motivation, what you're gonna see is that you've got to tap into something deeper, okay? Tap into, find something deeper inside yourself. Remember earlier I said, I can't help but want to go do adventures. I can't help but want to go build things. I want you to begin to tap into whatever it is that is for you. You've got to start tapping into it. This is where you are going to look like a freak of nature. You want to look like a freak of nature? Okay, you're going to look like a freak of nature because people will be around you and you will have this transcendent vibe that nobody can, like you will basically just look like you're just a cut above almost everybody. You'll walk into a room, you'll know that you're the best person there, and not even because you want to be. You'll feel bad that you are. It will bother you that you are, but you will be that person. It will bother you that you are. You will wish that you could be around better influences and people that are more aspirational and inspiring, but you will wind up being the best person in that room. You will wind up having a spark in the eyes because what happens is that the energy is now moving out of you like a Care Bear rather than sucking in. This is what you're going to see. It's going to change your life dramatically. And what's going to happen is, here's the base idea of it. If just making money for the result is too boring to do, because inevitably what happens is that there's so much boring components to it that by the time you get the result isn't worth it. If you can actually enjoy the process itself, you will be so addicted to that process that you will inevitably keep banging the guns. And what addiction to the process does is it gets you not in a place where you're like, oh, I don't need a result. No, no, no. It will not do that. Okay, this is what people that are, okay, here's the basic thing that happens, okay? The major components of a low spiritual state, one is being at the effect. And what does being at the effect mean that you focus on if you feel that you're at the effect? If you feel that your state is at the effect, what are you going to focus on? Results. Why is that? You believe that you need something outside yourself to be happy. You believe that you need something outside yourself to be at peace. You believe that you need something outside yourself to know who you are. So as a result, somebody in a very, very low spiritual state, if you ever talk about anything like loving the process, or if you ever talk about something like not being a victim, they will view that like like Dracula views a cross or a garlic. It makes them angry. They hate it. And here's what they're going to say. They're going to say, I'm not about that. I'm about results. But if you actually look at the results, in most cases, they have lower results. It's like this weird thing where they like their brand is result, like their brand and like outer skin is about results, but their actual results aren't that high. So what winds up happening is that if you love the process, you will be so connected to every millisecond and fraction of a millisecond and fraction and fraction and fraction and fraction of a millisecond and fraction of that what winds up happening is you become world class. You become unstoppable because your discernment isn't getting messed with. You don't have a parasite on you. You have total access to a flow state independently. The process itself generates flow. And so what winds up happening when you have this is you become world class. This is basically what it is. It is very, very hard for somebody who doesn't have independent access to flow to use discomfort as motivation, okay? Discomfort to me is amateur hour motivation, okay? So here's kind of the way that you think about it. Discomfort, people a level above that will say to you, and this is important for some of you in this room, I promise you. For a lot of people that are in apathy, they are hiding from their discomfort. Okay, you could be hiding from your discomfort. So somebody at a higher level than that will come and say, listen, it's not about the process, bro. It's not about you being at peace now, bro. It's about you acknowledging your pain at a high level. And then when you acknowledge your pain at a high level, what's gonna happen is you're gonna be prompted into action. So this is what happens. A lot of people in apathy, they're medicating their pain with drugs and alcohol, video games, fapping, and so on and so forth. Okay, they're doing that. Now, let me explain this to you, okay? For me, when I hear about things like no fap, or I hear about things like no video games, I don't relate to that. The reason that I don't relate to that is because I wouldn't be using that to medicate my pain. Does that make sense? Like, if I could find a video game that I love to play, I would be extremely happy to go do that. Like, if you guys were like, dude, we have the coolest video game, I'd be like, yes! For example, God of War is gonna come out later this year. I'm super gonna play that. I'm incredibly excited to play that. Horizon Zero Dawn 2 came out. Enjoyed that to death. It was so awesome. These were like some of my most fun experiences. But I'm not addicted to that in the slightest. I can't get addicted to video games. It's not enough. If you could show me like this perfect adult film that I could fap to, and like that would make me stay in the house, send it over. I'd be so excited. But it could never happen. I don't have issues with like fap or no fap because my motivation is too high. So I don't have an issue with that. That's not like, oh, you know, I'm just stuck in this. But a lot of people do. Many, many, many people do. It's incredibly common. But that's because they're in a state of apathy. So the idea of connecting to your pain is the idea that if you've been medicating your pain with video games, smoking weed, drinking alcohol, being a victim, is that you let the pain in and that prompts action. Okay? So that is like an initial level of motivation. It's total amateur hour. It's not something that I think will produce a transcendent result, but it is something that's a lot better than medicating it like most people. In fact, I would argue that for 90-something% of people, I'm not sure how many, actually being more results-oriented and being more connected to their pain and doing it just to get the result and so on and so forth is probably a better idea than what I'm saying here. Because they're not able to connect to what it is that I'm even talking about. It's too abstract. It's sort of interesting in theory. It's just too abstract. So if you're medicating your pain, if you're in a state where you're like, look, I'm in pain, I hate this, then maybe feeling the pain and wanting something better, it's almost like it's like a plane is on the ground, and that's like the initial spinning of the propeller to get it off the ground. Once you're in the air, though, what's going to happen is you're going to get comfortable too quickly. You're going to make your first million or two, you're going to get your first significant other or whatever, and you're going to stop. Because now you got the result and you're complacent. So it breeds for most people complacency. The only people that it doesn't breed complacency for is people completely possessed by that parasite, the ego parasite, that wants more and more and more and more. And if you look at them in the pupil, it is dark. So that's not a place that you want to go. Where you want to take this is a place where you have total ownership over your state, you have clear discernment, you are clearly connected to your will, and you have something that you love to do. It is something that you can engage with the process as an active meditation. Say the word active meditation. Active meditation. Okay, so what it is that you're doing should be connecting you to the present moment. It should be connecting you to a state of flow, and it should be coming from a place of a deep calling to do. You could say that God's will, but that's up to you. But whatever the case, atheist or not, it's a deep, passionate calling. Something that gives you so much flow state, so much growth, connects you to the present moment so deeply that you can't stop doing it. And right now, you don't say you're working at Walmart or something like that, then the next thing I would tell you is start messing around and playing with stuff. Start trying things. Start putting yourself out there. You can actually practice this working at Walmart when you're serving people food or whatever else. You can absolutely practice this. But what's going to wind up happening is this is going to help to get you to that transcendent level, okay, of total excellence. Every single one of you in here is capable of making a ton of cash. Every single one of you in here is capable of getting crazy social results. Any one of you in here is capable of being incredibly happy and fulfilled. You're all capable of it, okay? Every single one. But this is what I have found has been the path. And what happened is I have typically outperformed and typically had more longevity than almost anybody. And I've taken headwinds that most people have no idea and I don't talk about. Bad headwinds, like a lot of weird things that you see me do, like, why do you do that? Yeah, things like that. You have no idea the kind of headwinds that I've taken. And I've dusted myself off and I kept going. So I'm battle tested, like in ways that would freak you out. So what that basically means is I'm trying to show you, this is the main point, I'm trying to show you how to get to a higher level than people that got rich with things like venture capital, even though I think there's incredible pressure surrounding that. I want to show you how to get rich better than people who have intergenerational wealth. I want to show you how to be successful and happy better than people who would naturally have an advantage. And I want you to take a mindset that you chose your life. You chose your life. You chose this. You chose that you want to do this. This is what you chose. You chose this body. You chose this life circumstance. You chose everything. Is that true? Probably not. Okay, you win. It's not true. Your life sucks. Okay, wow, smart person. Great. Sometimes Smart is dumb, okay? Sometimes smart is dumb. I'm objective. Nah, okay. Well, how about this, Mr. or Mrs. Objective? If you believe and take on the mentality that we just said, you probably make a lot more cash. Objectively, that's probably true. So, okay, objective, what does it matter? What matters is the end result. So begin to adopt beliefs that empower you. And what you'll find is the law of self-fulfilling prophecy will begin to take over. If you believe right now that every single problem that you have, every single shortcoming that you have, you believe that right now, you chose it, then what would happen to your selective focus, your RAS? You'd embrace it. You'd stop feeling like a victim. One of the greatest ways to shut yourself down is what? Feeling like a victim. That's one of the greatest ways to shut yourself down. You'd stop feeling like a victim. You start taking major action. You get in a crazy flow state. You'd be operating at a world-class level if you followed the path. And then what would happen is you'd wind up getting the self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's what I want to start hammering into you now, okay? And it's this idea of endless motivation. What does it mean to be world-class? What does it mean to defy the odds? What does it mean to be completely unstoppable? Okay, what does that word mean, unstoppable? Say that word, unstoppable. Unstoppable. Okay, that's what we're looking at here. Unstoppable. Unstoppable. Yeah, good. Okay, that's what it means. So the payoff is not the material benefits. That's not the payoff. The payoff is knowing that you're actually unstoppable. That's what it is. And as we age, we lose that spark. Most people every single year are losing that spark. They are becoming dead to life. What this means is not becoming dead to life, it means engaging with life. So that as you're aging, your motivation, your spark of life, your enjoyment of life is increasing at a high rate. Okay? And what it means is that you can achieve real fulfillment, not the hollow fulfillment of believing that the world owes you something, of believing that the world is going to give you happiness, of waiting to be happy, of doing things that you don't even believe in. Does that mean that every single thing I do is a flow state activity? No, sometimes you gotta go do taxes. It sucks. Not everything is gonna be like that, but if you know that it's feeding that larger vision, then it feels very, very good, okay? So this is the main thing to understand. Short forms of motivation is acknowledge your pain, see how much it sucks, stop fapping, stop getting high, getting drunk, stop playing video games, own the pain, let the pain sink in, let it fire you up, and get in action. That's the fire starter, okay? But what you're gonna see is later as you go on, you get to, like, it happened to me. I was dating somebody who was very attractive, like my perfect version of someone to date, and I laid in bed with this person for almost 7 months when I was in my late 20s. And it was amazing. Don't get me wrong. But it was literally like being a fly caught in a honey trap. Like you're just like sucking the honey. But you can't move and the honey feels good, but you can't get out. And I remember 7 months later, I broke up with this person. And I did it not because they did anything wrong, because I couldn't move. I couldn't leave the bedroom. I mean, it was amazing. But I wouldn't take it back. But I wish I'd done it for 6 weeks, not 6 months plus. Okay, first 6 weeks, of course, I'm not taking that back for any amount of money. But at a certain point, you can't remember. Like, do you think at this point in my life, I can remember if it was 6 weeks or 6 months when it's like 13, 14 years ago? No. I don't remember. So what was the actual point? All that you're doing is pushing the pleasure button. You're just going, meh, 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 meh. It's not real fulfillment. I did that because I believed that what I was waiting for was pleasure. Same thing with the Mexico trip. I believed that what I was waiting for was money. So I had money, and then I just kept spending it. Or I had someone I was very attracted to, and I just kept pumping it, right? And I just kept doing that. And so what I learned over time was I actually lost motivation when I did this. So it was a good launch off point, it was a good jump off point, but it didn't keep me motivated in the long term, okay? When I say things like I'm 42 and I'm just getting started, that's not me being, look, I could die in a car accident today, don't get me wrong, that happens to anybody. Doesn't matter how cool you are, that could happen to anybody. Anything could happen to anybody, weird, bizarre stuff, especially with the silly things I've done over my life. But the point being is that I believe in my heart of hearts that I am just getting started. I am just getting started. I am just getting started. Say that with me. I am just getting started. And what this means is not waiting to be happy from something external. What it means is be happy now, unless you need that pain to jump yourself off, but it means be happy now and find what it is that we're talking about. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I want everybody in this room to get together, and I'd like every single person to begin the process of fleshing out what it is that you want your ideal life to look like that would include some of these elements that we brought in here today. Okay? What is your ideal life? What do you want this to look like? What would this mean to you? And begin the process of looking into this and fleshing it out. And through that process of fleshing it out, what you're going to find is you're going to hit a point where you know what it is that you're aiming at. And so when things come along to distract you and derail you from what it is that you're doing, you have an emotional association to why this is better. The problem right now is if you don't have a clear vision for what you're trying to do, when distractions get put in front of your face, you're going to keep looking at them because you haven't fleshed it out, okay? The enemy of derpy social media, the enemy of stupid TV, the enemy of idiotic media and entertainment is that people would do this. Very, very few people would be looking at, say, something like, say, most TikToks. Some TikToks are cool, but most people wouldn't be doing that if they knew what they really wanted.